Welcome back, you tired little stardust meat puppet. Tonight's story is about you, or rather, the yous. Because once upon a time, not in a castle, but in a neurosurgical ward in California, a group of doctors decided to sever the bridge inside the human brain. Not the whole brain, just the corpus callosum, a thick bundle of neural spaghetti connecting your left and right hemispheres, letting them whisper sweet nothings, swap means, and coordinate things like walking in a straight line. They cut it to stop catastrophic seizures, but what they discovered after wasn't silence, and it wasn't madness. It was a quiet civil war. The patients looked normal. They walked, they talked, they paid taxes probably, but underneath, two minds, each with its own thoughts, feelings, memories, each hemisphere living in the same skull, pretending not to notice the roommate. One half could speak, the other couldn't. One wrote the autobiography, the other just drew weird shit and pointed at snow shovels. So tonight, we explore the curious case of the split brain patients, the people who accidentally proved that your sense of self, that precious, indivisible I, is mostly just a ceasefire agreement between two very different meat blobs. And when that ceasefire ends, well, you start to realize how many voices are pretending to be just one. Snuggle in. This one's a doozy. Let's start with the bridge, the corpus callosum, a thick cable of nearly 200 million nerve fibers, bundled like neurospaghetti, connecting your brain's two hemispheres so they can share gossip, coordinate limbs, and maintain the illusion that you're one cohesive being instead of two squabbling housemates in a trench coat. If your left hemisphere sees a cat, the right one knows not to punch it. Teamwork. But for some people, that bridge became a problem. In severe epilepsy, rogue electrical storms bounce between hemispheres, turning the whole brain into a nightclub with no exit. Drugs didn't help. Prayers didn't help. So in a moment of surgical audacity, they tried something else. They cut the bridge. Not all of it at first, just a little off the top. Eventually, for the most desperate cases, they performed a full callosotomy, severing the corpus callosum completely. Clean split. Left hemisphere, right hemisphere. Still neighbors, no longer pen pals. And then, they waited. Would the patients collapse into madness? Would they lose language, memory, motor control? Nope. They asked for lunch. They cracked jokes. One patient went home and typed up a memo. On the surface, no big deal. But underneath, the silence between hemispheres had grown loud, and very strange things began to happen. Let's talk about WJ, the first human test subject in the grand experiment of what happens when you unplug your own brain bridge. After his corpus callosum was surgically severed, WJ was asked to look at a screen. Fixate in the center, don't move your eyes. Then, flash, a word appears, but only in the right visual field, which means it goes to the left hemisphere, the part of the brain that, conveniently, can talk. What did you see? Spoon, WJ says. Correct. Great. High functioning. Nothing to worry about. Then a second trial. This time the word is flashed to the left visual field. That information goes to the right hemisphere, which, remember, has now been cut off from its chatty twin. What did you see? Nothing. But now the experimenter asks WJ to reach, using his left hand, into a tray of objects and pick the one that matches what he saw. And his hand picks out a spoon. He couldn't say it, but he could feel it. The right hemisphere saw the word, processed it, and guided the left hand to select the correct object, even while the left hemisphere, which controls speech, sat there in the dark. And that was the twist. The two hemispheres were processing different realities. One could talk, the other could point, and neither knew quite what the other was doing. But things got even weirder. In the now infamous chicken claw and snow shovel experiment, They flashed a chicken claw to the right visual field, left hemisphere, and a snowy driveway to the left visual field, right hemisphere. Then they showed WJ several pictures and asked him to pick the one that best matched what he'd seen. Right hand picking for the left hemisphere, left hand picking for the right. The right hand chose a chicken, the left hand chose a snow shovel. Each side picked something totally appropriate, based on what it alone had seen. Then came the question, why did you pick those? And this is where things get delicious. Only the left hemisphere can answer, and it didn't see the snow. So WJ replied, without hesitation, well, the chicken claw goes with the chicken, and the shovel is for cleaning out the chicken coop. Total confinement. Zero accuracy. So let's recap. A man sees two unrelated images, one in each hemisphere. One hand picks a chicken, the other picks a shovel, and when asked why, he gives a perfectly logical answer. Wrong, but logical. That's the interpreter in action. See, the left hemisphere, the one with the microphone, has no access to what the right hemisphere saw, so it does what it always does. It makes something up. Not maliciously, it just can't stand the idea of not knowing. It's like a nervous improv actor who's missed half the play, but still insists on explaining the plot. And once you understand that, things start to fall apart. Because if the part of you that speaks, the part that explains your life, is just filling in blanks, how much of your identity is real? How much is post-production? It's not just pointing at snow shovels, it's everything. Why you left that relationship, why you chose that career, why you said what you said in the middle of that very awkward silence. The interpreter doesn't know, but it can't say, I don't know. So it spins a tale. I was following my passion. She didn't understand me. I just had to say something. No, you didn't. That was the silent hemisphere doing weird stuff again, and your mouth just tried to make it look intentional. This is the genius and the horror of the interpreter. It's not trying to lie. It's trying to protect your illusion of being a singular, coherent self, of being the captain of the ship. But in reality, you are a ship with two helms, and only one has access to the intercom. And when the other side steers towards something strange, the interpreter grabs the mic and says, "Yep, all part of the plan." So yes, split-brain patients gave us the most dramatic proof, but the rest of us are doing this every day. The only difference is, we never had the surgery. We never saw the split. We're still letting both hemispheres whisper to each other, convincing ourselves that the voice narrating our life actually knows what the hell is going on. Spoiler, it doesn't. But it really, really wants to. You'd think, after all this, that split-brain patients would be utterly wrecked. Two minds, one skull. No communication. They should be hallucinating snow shovels during chicken dinners, arguing with their own hands, crumbling into cognitive soup. But most of them felt fine. Normal even. WJ didn't report feeling split. He wasn't confused or alarmed by his hands doing different things. He didn't wake up screaming, "Which me is me?" He just kept going. And that's what puzzled the researchers most. Not the freaky dissociations, but the fact that patients didn't feel them. They were two minds, sure, but subjectively, they still felt like one. How? Well, part of it is the interpreter, spinning those beautiful lies. But part of it is the brain's incredible talent for faking coherence. Even when the hemispheres were severed, they still found ways to sync. Not directly, not via the callosum, that bridge was gone, but through residual pathways, subcortical connections, sneaky detours, maybe a neural back alley or two. And when tasks required deliberate effort, like solving a problem or focusing attention, the hemispheres could sometimes align. Like estranged twins coordinating through vibes. Some patients over time learned tricks, developed top-down strategies, used their eyes or body to relay information from one side to the other. Because even when the automatic systems were split, Conscious effort could pull things back together, at least a little. But it wasn't always seamless. Some dissociations never healed. In a few patients, the left hand would act on its own, undoing buttons the right hand just fastened, grabbing objects the person said they didn't want. It became known, charmingly, as alien hand syndrome, which sounds like a B-movie, but is actually just Tuesday for a split brain patient. Then there's the question of language. The left hemisphere usually gets the credit for speech, but some right hemispheres? They could spell, they could understand, and in rare cases, they could even speak. One teenage patient, PS, had words flash to his right hemisphere only, and he used letter tiles with his left hand to spell out full sentences. He couldn't say them out loud, but the words were there. Others could draw what they couldn't describe. The split brain patients were rare, handpicked, surgically altered. Most of us will never have our corpus callosum severed, and yet, the more you learn about them, the more uncomfortably familiar they start to feel. You forget why you walked into a room. You reach for something before you know you want it. You say things you don't mean, and then scramble to explain them like a PR intern mid-scandal. You believe you're one person, but the data disagrees. The truth is, there was never one you inside your head. There were always two, and probably more. Layers, modules, subroutines wrapped in skin. An orchestra with no conductor, just a brass section pretending it knows the score. The speaking part of your brain builds a narrative, a smooth story, a timeline, a self. But underneath that, something else is making decisions. Picking snow shovels, ending relationships, buying weird things at 3 a.m. And when asked why, the narrator speaks up. Oh, that was totally me. I had a reason. Sure you did. Split brain research cracked open the illusion. Not just for patients, but for all of us. It showed that consciousness is stitched together from contradictions, that agency is a performance, that the self is a well-meaning lie. And yet, we keep functioning. We keep walking forward. We keep telling the story. Maybe that's the real miracle. Not that we're unified, but that we're fractured, conflicted, multi-voiced, and still manage to file our taxes, still manage to love people, still manage to stare up at the stars and wonder if we matter. You are not a single thing. You never were. You are a negotiation, a temporary alignment of competing agendas, a story told by half a brain trying to make sense of a world it only partially sees. But here's the part that matters. The story still gets told. Even when the lights flicker. Even when the hands don't agree. Somewhere, beneath all the noise and neural misfires, a voice whispers, I am.